All right, I am live here, excited to be on today, and we're going to go over an interview here. Actually, some content. Let me close this. The sun's coming in. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. And we'll just give it just a few seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And I'm just waiting for my guests to arrive. But if you are joining us, just go ahead and comment in the section there. Welcome, welcome. Howdy. Kimberly, welcome. So again, Todd Kale here. We're going to talk about really boundaries today. When to have them, how to have them, what to do when you do want them. And I'm just waiting for my guest to arrive here, and he is not on yet. But I want to go ahead and get started. So this is an important topic because a lot of times we don't know either how to set boundaries or how to create boundaries, and we keep getting hurt over and over again. So if you're like me, go ahead and comment boundaries if you're excited about how to protect your inner house, how to protect yourself so that the outside world doesn't come in when you or other relationship or things that we have in our lives that really can hurt us and actually we lose. And I want to really show you today how to win that battle because I think it's a battle that correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of us face. So, do you face the boundary battle? Go ahead and comment yes if I'm talking to the right person here. But again, I'm waiting on my guest real quick and we'll get into it. So, while we're waiting for him, I think the first boundary that I would like to talk about is your professional boundary. Okay, so I'm going to go over professional boundary and then I'll go into personal boundaries, but the professional boundary really coincides with the personal, and then the personal boundary coincides with the professional. So I'm just going to speak from my point of view and kind of what I do and how I'm really protecting myself. Because every time I come on and I'm talking about something, I don't want to just speak about something I don't know about. So this very topic is something that I've struggled with. This is a topic that I wasn't very good at for many, many years. In fact, it actually got me in trouble multiple times, with not setting the right and proper boundary. So when it comes to professional boundary, how many of you out there, you're hard, yeah, I can't even talk. How many of you out there are achievers? You really want to achieve, you're someone that wants to go out there and work hard, but you also don't want to lose a family. You don't want to lose time with your children, all that stuff, right? But there has to be balance, though. There has to be that boundary. So what I do is I've created a schedule that I have to live by. And this is something that I've told my family, I've told my children and everything, that I have to live by this schedule. So what it does, it sets a boundary for me Monday through Friday from pretty much 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. that in this time frame, that time is mine and I cannot be interrupted unless it's a big deal. And sometimes I welcome the interruptions, just like I wrote my book, You versus Your Routine. But this particular boundary is I need to get my work done. Daddy needs to get his work done, or I need to get my work done. And what that also includes is I need to get focused on the mission of my objective. So a lot of you might have objectives. I have three personal right now for the month, really for the next 4 weeks that I need to accomplish. So in the time frame of Monday through Friday, in that 8 hours, that is my boundary with everyone out there that maybe wants my attention. Like I said, even my own children, unless it's an emergency or if I have to go pick them up or et cetera, et cetera. But this is my time to create. This is my time as a professional to be professional. Now, after that is over, everyone knows in my family that, okay, cool. Now I can hang out. Now we can have dinner. Now we can go to the baseball game or whatever we need to do. So I've really started to set those boundaries, and it also helps me personally know this is what I need to do to perform. And if I don't, so what? Or too bad, even to myself. So it sets a boundary for me, and it also sets a boundary for my loved ones. Now, even in my colleagues and the people that I work with, they can't text me 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night. And I think if you are in a professional work environment, or even if you work from home, a lot of you work from home, it's up to you to give access to people or not. So maybe you need to set a boundary, at certain times a day so that people are not always texting you 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, depending on what time around the country that you are. So how many of you struggle with that? How many of you, let me just read the comments here. We got someone in the Philippines. We got people commenting. How many of you right now are really frustrated with some of the boundaries maybe that you have, and you feel like you're always like a hamster, running around, and you don't know really kind of what to do here. So if you're like me, right? So just go ahead and comment yes. Okay, cool. So we set that boundary. So anyone that you um, are allowing in your life, that if they keep texting you at 7 in the morning and you keep allowing it to happen, then they're going to keep doing it over and over again. Anyone that you allow texting you at 9 o'clock at night, they don't know any better. So I come from the network marketing world, and a lot of times people just think the sponsor or the upline, it should be always there for them. Well, that really just depends on what boundaries that you set. Okay, now let's go out of the professional and into the personal. Okay, and this is where a lot of you maybe are really striving, or you're struggling. You're either striving or struggling, basically. So on a personal level, when you call it a day, you got to call it a day. I remember my mentor many years ago. He said when he drove into the garage, he left all his baggage from work in the garage. When he drove into the garage, he left all his baggage from work in the garage. And I think one of the boundaries I think that I need to have, and that maybe you need to have, it's up to you. But again, I'm not giving advice here. I'm just giving some feedback of what I've kind of gone through, the hard knock life sometimes that I've had, is a lot of times we might tend to bring in baggage. I don't know about you, but that's what I used to do. Bring in baggage from work. So at the dinner table with the wife, or at the dinner table with the husband, you talk about, how's work going? Oh, work is bad. Work is, oh, my boss is being a jerk. This is so much drama. So and so speaking about so and so, and all of this stuff is happening. And your spouse has to hear that. Does that make sense? Now, you might think to yourself, well, it's just my spouse, right? I need to be honest with them, and I just need to tell them everything. Actually, no. Just because you're married to somebody, that doesn't mean you need to unload on them and tell them everything about your day and we tend, because our spouses may be comfortable to us, we tend to unload on them, not really knowing that we're actually unloading. We think we're just talking to them, but maybe your spouse had a stressful day too, and maybe he or she is not telling you everything, and maybe they're being nice and cordial, and they're like, okay, I'm so sorry you're going through that. But imagine you doing that every single day. Imagine you unloading about your work in the dinner table, and in that time where you're supposed to actually have fun and be one with your spouse, or even your children, of course. Imagine telling your children all of the ups and downs of your work day. They really don't want to hear it, right? So that's setting a boundary, even on a personal level, is not going there and sharing everything with your children or your family when you get home. So I would recommend, this is just what I would do. I would recommend is set a schedule for your profession, and when your professional day is over, that's it. And anything you didn't accomplish that day, add it to the following day. And it's almost like you have to have an imaginary hat. So the professional hat is on, like the worker's hat is on, and then once the workday is over, take it off and allow your family to know that you're taking it off. Now you have access to dad, you have access to your husband, or you have access to your wife, but it's not access to unload. It's just access to have fun and to talk about the fun stuff in life, and not always serious stuff. Now, there are going to be times in your personal life that it is going to be serious. You have to have serious conversations, but even in those serious, let's talk about money. So this is something that a lot of us have probably no boundaries on. But when you have a serious talk with your spouse or a loved one about money, let's, for instance, it's not a fun conversation a lot of the times. I mean, it's, budgeting. I mean, it doesn't have to be not fun, but I think some of us might be uncomfortable, or, it could get in an argument, et cetera. So there needs to be boundaries. So for instance, if I'm going to have a conversation with a loved one, I'm going to say, hey, before we start, I might pray. I might just say, hey, let's allow God to work through this conversation. And then at the same time, we both agree that we're not going to be angry, or we're not going to attack, or we're not going to just be very kind to each other. So what happens is when you do set boundaries and you have a communication of, is that okay? Is it okay if I know we're going to have a tough conversation, but here's how I would like to approach this conversation. So, and also you might have a loved one that's always calling you, but they're not preparing you. And it might be a serious conversation. You might be driving in your car and you're not even with them in person. So you need to tell and you need to communicate with your spouse and be like, look, this is a conversation that I'd rather have in person with you. In fact, you shouldn't even say I'd rather. You can say I would like to set a boundary, and I would just like to say, like, all serious conversations, we need to book it. We need to have a time where we're looking each other in the eye and we can actually have a real conversation, and not just any time you have access to me. Because, like, let's say I'm having a bad day and a spouse calls me and just unloads on me, but I'm having a bad day. She doesn't know. We don't communicate. So that's why setting boundaries will actually prevent anger, and it will actually prevent you from maybe going off or maybe losing it, because we all are human, right? How many of you agree with me? No matter how good your intentions, a lot of times that we just kind of are human, you know, humanity shows up, and we we're having a bad day, we get thrown off, we have all the best intentions to do the to-do list, but then we're like thrown off by something. So when this happens, it really is critical that you have that kind of, boundary set. Okay. And even in relationships, like if you're single, this is the time to set boundaries within the next relationship. So if you're single, say yes. Okay. And do you agree? Like, maybe you look at your past relationships and be like, okay, that can't happen again. This can't happen again. But guess what? It does happen again if you don't make a conscious decision to actually make a shift and make sure that you're setting the proper boundaries for your health, your inner health, your mental health, and even your physical health for that next relationship. So for instance, if you dated someone that was narcissistic, here's the situation. A lot of times women in general, when they date narcissistic men, they tend to go to another narcissist because that's their type. So if you keep going to a certain type that becomes narcissistic, or is, and you don't realize they are until later on, is that their fault or is it your fault? Well, it's your fault because you didn't set the boundary within yourself of what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept for the next relationship. So, Jefferson Cloud, I think, no, I think it's Dr. McLeod. He wrote actually a great book called Boundaries. I highly recommend you buy it. I read it last year. It really kind of helped me. My mom actually turned me onto it. But it's a great book of just like, this is how you do it: personal life, relationships, professional life. And then even with yourself, setting a boundary of like, this is when you work out. This is when I call them KPIs, your key performance indicator. This is when you do certain key performance indicators like meditation. Like you should have a boundary in the morning that you're going to meditate, let's say 10 to 15 minutes a day. You're going to read your Bible. By the way, tip of the day, I don't have it on me, but I read Proverbs. So today I read Proverbs 21 a couple of times, the whole chapter. And there's 31 chapters in Proverbs, which is kind of cool, right? So the wisest man ever to walk the planet is King Solomon, other than Jesus, and he wrote Proverbs. Okay, and Proverbs is the chapters aren't very long. It could take you 10 minutes basically. So you can literally do a daily devotion of a boundary without, so you don't have your cell phone, you're not on Facebook, you're not on Instagram, you're not even on all that stuff until after you meditate, after maybe you do your devotions or after you pray or whatever it is. And then maybe after breakfast you could pick up your phone, because you are in charge of yourself. You are in control. And if we can focus on what we can control, then we're going to be better prepared and set up for whatever life throws our way. Okay, just like Michael Phelps, he's a swimmer. He wanted to be in as much control as he possibly can be. And this is what made him a 19-time gold medalist, okay, 19 times over, is because he controlled the narrative as much as he could. Even though he couldn't control the waves in the pool, even though he couldn't control what his competitor was doing on the left side or the right side of him, or the race or whatever happened, he can control how much nutrition he put in his body. He can control the work ethic that he put into his effort. He can control how he showed up. He can control his attitude. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, is you can control a lot in your life. You might not think that you don't have a lot of control, but by setting boundaries, you actually are controlling your life. So if you like to control your life, say I, right? Put I in the comment section, because you are in control a lot of your life. Now, there's certain parts of your life that you're not in control. You're not in control of someone that's, hitting you with their car on accident or getting in a car accident. It's not your number. You're not in control of maybe how sometimes people treat you. But what I will say is that you are, if they keep treating you that way. So if somebody treats you bad the first time, you are in control if they keep doing that. Does that make sense? So that's why boundaries is such an important topic to talk about, because this is what's going to set you up for massive success. And this is what's going to set you up for also massive failure if you don't have boundaries and if you don't know how to control the narrative. Does that make sense? So you are creating the story. What is the story that you want to create? We all made mistakes. How many of you have made mistakes? Okay, say I, right? I've made a ton of mistakes not having boundaries. I also have made a ton of mistakes feeding that narcissistic person or feeding that drama person or feeding that toxic relationship because I didn't block them out of my life. I just assumed they're going to change. I just assumed that I'm going to do something and they're just going to change. And maybe they did for a while, but then all of a sudden they're back, right? Now, there's certain people that do change though. So I'm not going to say if someone was mean to me, I'm never going to work with them again. No, if I can see a genuine authenticity, and same with me, if I make a mistake and I really own it and I also tell them, let's set some boundaries, that won't happen again. And of course, if it does, you're free to defriend me. You're free. I mean, you could even do this in a marriage. Like you're free to divorce me. Like if this happens again and I'm not clearly in my boundary, like I stay, if I get out of what I promise you, then you're free to leave me and vice versa. Because there's certain things that you just can't do to people in relationships and have them stay in the game with you. Maybe your mom you can, I guess, maybe your sister or your brother because they're blood. But specifically, I'm talking about business partnerships and marriages and just friendships. You can't keep screwing people over and expect that person always to forgive you. Well, God forgives, right? Yeah, God forgives, and He's God. You're not. So, and I'm not. So, we got to forgive. But if that person's authentically sorry, then that's a different story. And if they change their behavior. Awesome, and you do want to give those people a chance, and you don't want to also set boundaries, right? Of always bringing up the past. And I know people in my life, and I know people probably in your life that you literally authentically came to them and you like, look, I'm sorry. I know, and you haven't done anything to upset them ever again, but they keep bringing up the past. How many of you can really resonate with that? It's frustrating, right? It really makes you frustrated. It's like, look, I'm changing. For the past X amount of months, I haven't done any of that. So why keep bringing up my mishaps and my faults? And again, you have to set the boundary. So if that is happening to you, what you have to do is be like, look, I've already proven to you time and again that I broke trust with you, but I'm not going to break it. And I've actually proven that. So I'm going to set a boundary right now that if you keep bringing up my past and you keep, kind of, I don't know, being mean, I guess, or telling me I'm not good enough because I did this a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, when I'm actually doing the opposite over and over again, I'm going to leave the relationship now. And I'm not trying to tell you to threaten somebody, but again, it comes in that boundary because maybe you did mess up 10 years ago. I mean, I certainly did in certain relationship for sure. We all did. But if you're a changed man or a changed woman and someone keeps telling you about the past when you really had the time to build trust back, you've got to decide, is that relationship worth it anymore if they keep bringing this up? See, setting boundaries, I'll close with this, really helps with anxiety. A lot of people are filled with anxiety today. A lot of people are filled with, depression. And a lot of that does come from, it's not just hereditary. It's not just from, I inherited it from my father, but some of it can be, absolutely. But a lot of it comes from relationships. So when people are anxious, it's not because their favorite football team is not in the Super Bowl. It's not even because of the news. It's not even because of the world we live in. I mean, yes, that does bring some type of anxiety sometimes, but it's from people. People have anxiety because of people. People are weird units a lot of the times, including myself, right? We can go weird. And that's where anxiety comes from. So if you are, even if you're the nicest person in the world, even if you're just all about, you're a flowery personality, you're so kind, I'm telling you, those are the people that actually lose a lot of times in life. And yeah, kindness is everything. And I get that, but you also have to be smart. And you can't just always be kind and kind and kind. If someone keeps showing you who they really are and screwing you over and abusing you or being abusive, are you just going to be like, oh, it's okay? God forgave me and no, of course, you have to put your guard up. And again, forgiveness is a real thing, and we also, need to look into that more. But if that person's not changing, like, yeah, don't just be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself enough that you can not associate with that person anymore. And I think it's just a powerful thing. Now you can love them from afar, but you also have to be kind to yourself. You can't keep getting abused, or you can't keep getting rejected, right? A lot of times, let's say a woman keeps getting rejected from a man, but she's still in love with him, or vice versa. It's like, dude, lady, obviously they're not interested. Okay, no matter how much you do for them, they're just not interested in you. And then what happens is a shift of perspective once they actually love themselves and they're kind of themselves enough to go to another person, that person treats them like a king or queen. And then they realize, oh my God, thank God I was kind to myself and I love myself enough to know what I'm worth. And now they're in an amazing relationship. Does that make sense? So this is why boundaries can save lives. This is why boundaries can make or break you, because loving yourself enough to set these will actually set the tone of a relationship in a very healthy way. Will set the tone of a business in a very healthy way, so that you're not always accessible in a business, but you will be if you don't tell people that you're not. And you might say, well, that makes people feel bad. And, what if I always used to feel bad not being accessible, but it got in the way of my personal relationships. Does that make sense? So actually, what I thought was going to be good for the personal relationship was actually bad and toxic, because I allowed people to get in my life too much on the professional side, when I should have let my personal side only be my personal side, and my professional side be my professional side. And I'll leave you this last thing here. Hopefully, if you're getting some value out of this, just put a one if you're getting value out of what I'm saying. What was I going to say? The last thing I do want to share with you is actually pretty awesome, but I actually I think I forgot it. But you have to set boundaries of getting too personal. I think it's very important. Like if you're a leader, now let me talk to the leaders. I think there's this pressure as leaders to divulge, especially because of social media, just to divulge a lot of information about your life. And actually, I've taken a stand myself. I've set boundaries with social media where I don't want to share my personal life anymore on social media. I don't. Like I've had an amazing personal life for about 3 months, and I'm not telling anybody. Time with my kids, I'm not posting it on social media. Going on, certain night outs, I'm not posting it on social media. That's my personal choice. Now, sometimes I will, whatever, but it's just social media to me is like a business. It's like sharing professional information, connecting with people is great, but I don't feel a guilt anymore that if I don't post, what me and my kids are doing on the weekend or my son's baseball games. I used to feel guilt about that. And I realized, wait a minute, why do I want to give people the best of me all the time publicly? That's not fair. I want to keep some of this private information private. And that way I'm free of judgment. Nobody's going to judge me. And even putting my kids publicly, I don't even want to do that because there's some weirdos out there. So parents, set some boundaries. Maybe you shouldn't post about your kids all the time because there's weirdos out there. You have to protect your kids. So boundaries are individually different. So whatever your boundaries are individually, you've got to come to that decision. But because I used to be 3, 4 years ago, all about my public life. I think my wedding was on Facebook Live. I mean, I was kind of a stupid person back then, right, to do that, because it's like, I don't want to let everyone in on everything. And that's just a personal preference now that I'm 40. And I like it. I appreciate the celebrities that cover the face of their children instead of always like, here's my kids and I have 200 million followers. And like, no judgment from me, but I would rather be the opposite of that. I'd rather have protection of my own family from all my followers. Does that make sense? So you've got to just make that decision. It's up to you. But don't feel guilty if you're like me and you don't want to post all your private moments. And I think also when you see people like they're so in love and they post all the time, like we get it through one post. Like you don't have to post every day about your wife or your husband. We get it. You love your husband. But I think people that do that, it's almost like they need attention. And I was one of them years ago. And it's just like, hey, look at us, look at me, look at what we're doing. And I thought it was good for business, but at the end of the day, I think what's good for business is business. And I think what's good for your personal life is your personal life. So keep them private and keep your business public if you need to, and keep your personal life private. I mean, that way a lot of haters won't really be able to hate on you and judge you because they don't even know what you're up to. They don't even know what you're, so it's easy to judge people when they know all about you. And it's hard to judge people or hate on someone when you're kind of a mystery. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that adds value. Um, and like I said, I'll close with this. Anything that I publicly talk about is not because I needed a cool topic to talk about. It's something I've lived, and I've lived the hard way. And I'm here to tell you I'm on the way opposite side of that now, and it feels good. It feels good not to post, here's what I ate for lunch today, and here's what I'm doing with my family tonight. It feels good. It actually feels no pressure. And if I want to do it, I'll do it. But if I don't, I don't, and no guilt. So I just want to share that with you that boundaries are critical for mental health, and they're critical for healthy relationships, and they're critical for interpersonal relationships and even professional relationships. In fact, they're very important for professional. So you choose what your boundaries are. You choose them wisely, and hopefully this helped a little bit to maybe help you think and create some self-awareness of where you can really take your life once the proper boundaries are set for you, knowing where you want to go, what is your objective, what are your goals, and this is going to help you get there even faster without a lot of the drama. So with that said, thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate it.